I inherited my grandfather's ship garage on Vesper Station, a dusty, forgotten outpost floating in the shadow of the galactic core. It was an old place held together with rust, engine grease, and stubbornness, just like him. The day I arrived, stepping over loose hydro spanners and the remnants of half-finished projects, I could still hear his gruff voice echoing in my head. A ship's only as good as the hands that build it, kid. And you? You got good hands. I wasn't so sure about that. My hands had never built a ship, only repaired them. But Grandpa had left me the garage, and I had a dream to build a warp cruiser, my own ship, something sleek, fast, and capable of punching a hole through the stars. Something that would get me off this dead-end station and out into the universe where I belonged. Vesper Station wasn't much. A relic of an older time, back when humanity was still carving out a place in the galactic frontier. The aliens that passed through barely acknowledged me. Just another human with grease-stained overalls and a name no one cared to learn. I didn't mind. The work kept me busy, and the dream of my warp cruiser kept me sane. The garage itself was a graveyard of old ship parts, some of them predating the Galactic Empire itself. Grandpa had collected everything. Forgotten fusion cores, outdated sublight engines, even an experimental gravitic drive that had no documentation. A lifetime of scavenging, bartering, and sheer human ingenuity had left me with a treasure trove of potential. But no credits. And I needed credits. Lots of them. The blueprint for my warp cruiser sat on a dusty workbench, drawn in careful detail across sheets of plastifilm. It was beautiful, at least to me, a streamlined, high-speed craft with a custom-built slipstream core and dual-ion thrusters for precision maneuvering. But without funding, it was nothing more than a dream on paper. That was when I found it. Tucked away in the deepest corner of the garage, behind a tarp-covered heap of forgotten components, was a ship. A real one. Not a rusted-out freighter or a scrapped courier vessel, but something ancient. Sleek. Dangerous. I yanked the tarp off, sending a cloud of dust swirling into the air. The hull was smooth black alloy, its surface unmarred by time. No markings, no serial numbers. It looked like something out of a lost era. Elegant, deadly, and unmistakably human. The cockpit was sealed, but the interface flickered to life at my touch. A deep, resonant hum filled the garage, vibrations running through the deck plating. That was when I saw the inscription. Engraved along the side of the console in perfect, precise lettering was a name I had only ever heard in myths. Erebus. My breath caught. Erebus wasn't just a ship. It was the ship. The last human vessel to challenge the Galactic Empire before the war ended in our surrender. It had vanished 100 years ago, its fate unknown. And yet, here it was, sitting in my grandfather's garage like just another forgotten relic. How had he gotten his hands on this? My fingers trembled as I reached for the activation panel. The ship responded instantly, the systems flickering to life as if it had been waiting for me. A voice, smooth and mechanical, filled the air. Identification required. Authorization code. Grandfather override detected. Welcome, heir of Captain Elias Vale. Captain Elias Vale. My grandfather. The realization slammed into me like a kinetic blast. He hadn't just been a mechanic. He had been the mechanic. The one who had built Erebus. The one who had kept it hidden all these years. And now it was mine. The weight of it settled into my bones. If the Galactic Empire ever found out, I wouldn't just be another nameless human scraping by on the fringes of the galaxy. I would be hunted. But as I stood there, staring at the ship that had once defied an empire, another thought crept in. If Erebus could fly again, then maybe, just maybe, so could humanity's dreams. And I wasn't about to let the Empire stop me. The ship's systems pulsed with quiet energy, the hum of something ancient yet impossibly advanced. My fingers hesitated over the interface. If this was really Erebus, then I was holding history in my hands, a relic from a last time humanity had stood defiant. I swallowed hard and accessed the ship's logs. Most files were corrupted, but fragments remained. War reports, damage assessments, a final, unfinished log entry from my grandfather. Erebus is too valuable to let them have it. The Empire will never find it here. If you're reading this, it means you found my secret. And that means you're the only one left who could decide what comes next. A chill ran down my spine. He had hidden this ship from the entire galaxy. But why? Before I could dive deeper, the garage's proximity alarm blared. Someone was here. I killed the ship's systems and bolted for the entrance. Through the grime-streaked viewport, I saw a sleek shuttle settling onto the station's landing pad. Not a freighter, not a cargo hauler, something official. A tall, armored figure emerged, flanked by two enforcers in dark Imperial combat suits. Their helmets gleamed under the station's flickering lights, weapons holstered but within easy reach. Imperial inspectors. My stomach twisted. Had they come for Erebus? No, impossible. No one knew it was here, but that didn't make their presence any less dangerous. I stepped outside, keeping my expression neutral as the lead officer strode toward me. He wasn't just some low-level bureaucrat. His uniform bore the insignia of a proconsul, high-ranking, dangerously powerful. Are you the proprietor of this establishment? His voice was crisp, professional, with an undercurrent of authority that sent an instinctive chill down my spine. I nodded. Yeah, the name's Rovale. What can I do for the Empire today? He studied me, his expression unreadable. I am Proconsul Damaris of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. We're conducting a sector-wide audit of all independent shipyards. His gaze swept over the garage with faint disinterest. Yours came up on our list. An audit. Maybe that was all this was. Just routine bureaucracy. But I knew better than to take chances. Not much to see here, Proconsul, I said, keeping my voice casual. Just a backwater shop keeping old ships running. Damaris nodded slowly, as if considering. So I see. He gestured toward one of his enforcers. Run the scans. A small drone detached from the enforcer's gauntlet and began sweeping the garage with silent efficiency. It passed over crates of old ship parts, my workbench, even the rusted-out frame of an old courier vessel I had been stripping for parts. But when it approached the hidden alcove where Erebus sat, I felt my pulse spike. I forced myself to stay calm. The ship was shielded. At least I hoped it was. The drone hovered in place for a moment, then moved on. My breath came easier, but I knew better than to let my guard down. The proconsul watched me carefully. You've inherited quite the collection, Mr. Vale. I imagine it's difficult keeping a place like this running without outside support. I kept my face neutral. I manage. His smile was thin. I respect independent operators. But understand this. Any unregistered ships, contraband technology, or unauthorized modifications must be reported. The Empire takes these matters very seriously. I nodded. Understood. Damaris studied me for another moment, then turned away. We will be in this sector for the next few days. If you recall anything that needs clarification, you may contact my office. With that, he strode back to his shuttle, his enforcers following in silent formation. I didn't breathe until the shuttle lifted off and disappeared into the void. That had been too close. I turned back toward the garage, my mind racing. Erebus wasn't just dangerous, it was a liability. If the Empire ever found out, I'd be dead before I could even think about running. But another thought crept in, unshakable and insistent. The Empire had come sniffing around for a reason. Maybe they weren't just auditing. Maybe they were looking for something. And if that was the case, then I needed to find out what, before they found me first. Back inside the garage, I locked the doors, double-checked the perimeter security, and slumped against the nearest workbench. My mind raced. The Empire didn't conduct routine audits in the outer fringe, not unless they had a reason, which meant Damaris had suspicions. And suspicions meant I was on borrowed time. I turned back to Erebus, its dark hull seeming to absorb the dim light of the garage. My grandfather had hidden this ship from the Empire for decades. But why? What made it so dangerous? Only one way to find out. I pulled up the ship's logs again. Most of them were still corrupted, but I isolated a few partially intact files. Tactical reports, weapons diagnostics, experimental engine schematics. And then I found it. A classified entry, encrypted with an old Terran military cipher. I ran it through a decryption tool. The data fragmented, then reassembled into something I could read. Project Revenant. The word sent a chill down my spine. I scrolled through the data, my pulse quickening. Erebus wasn't just a warship. It was part of a last-ditch project to turn the tide of humanity's war against the Empire. A ship built not just to fight, but to disappear. Experimental cloaking technology. Null-point energy shielding. A warp drive that could phase through dimensional rifts. And the last known coordinates of the project's research facility. A dead system at the edge of the galaxy. I stared at the data, my mind racing. If that facility still existed, if there were other ships like Erebus still hidden out there, this was bigger than me. Bigger than my grandfather's old garage. And then the proximity alarm blared again. I cursed and shut down the display, rushing to the viewport. Another ship, not Imperial. A beaten-up long-range scout, its hull pitted with battle scars. It had no official markings, only a streak of red paint along the side, half-faded but unmistakable. A rebel ship. The ramp lowered, and a figure stepped out. Tall, lean, wrapped in a reinforced flight suit, helmet under one arm, a sidearm holstered at her hip. Then she looked up, and my heart nearly stopped. I knew that face. Rovale, she said, voice edged with dry amusement. Didn't think I'd see you again. Captain Mara Cade, I breathed. You're supposed to be dead. She grinned. Yeah, well, death is overrated. I stared at her, my mind trying to catch up. Mara had been one of the most notorious rebel pilots during the last resistance push against the Empire. The kind of legend people whispered about in dark corners. And she had died publicly. The Empire had announced it. There had been footage. But here she was, standing in my garage like it was just another day. Ow! I started, but she cut me off with a look. Not important. What is important is that the Empire is tearing through this sector, looking for something. And my people think you have it. I felt my stomach drop. Mara took a step closer, her voice quieter now. What did you find, Ro? I hesitated. Telling her meant dragging myself even deeper into something dangerous. But if the Empire was really on the hunt, then keeping this to myself was suicide. I exhaled slowly. A ship. An old warship. My grandfather hid it here. Her expression sharpened. And I glanced at Erebus. It's got coordinates to a lost research facility. Something called Project Revenant. Mara went completely still. Then she swore. Hell, that was not a good sign. You know what this is, I said. Don't you? Mara met my eyes. I know that if we don't move fast, the Empire is going to kill both of us for even talking about it. A cold weight settled in my gut. And then, as if the universe itself wanted to prove her right, my comm unit crackled to life. A coded distress signal. An Imperial frequency. Mara's jaw tightened. They're coming. The transmission repeated, unwavering. By order of the Galactic Emperor, you will surrender the vessel immediately. I gripped the controls, my pulse hammering. The Erebus wasn't equipped for a fight against a dreadnought. Not head-on. But I wasn't about to roll over either. Mara's voice crackled through the comm, laced with static. Ro, where the hell are you? I lost your signal for a second. I exhaled sharply. I think I just made a very bad jump. Define bad. I stared at the enormous warship blocking my path. Royal-class dreadnought, I said. Gold-plated. Probably carrying the Emperor himself. A moment of stunned silence. You have got to be kidding me. The dreadnought's weapons powered up. Targeting arrays locked onto Erebus. I didn't wait. I pushed the engines to full, spiraling away from their firing solution. Plasma beams sliced through the warped space around me, missing by meters. The Erebus's hull vibrated under the sheer force of their near misses. The dreadnought loomed closer. I had no illusions about escaping a direct pursuit. Even with Erebus's speed, a Royal-class ship had tracking systems centuries ahead of civilian tech. But speed wasn't my only advantage. I had something they didn't. Experimental warp phasing. I flicked a switch, engaging the unstable drive once more. A deep hum resonated through the ship, and space itself twisted. For a heartbeat, my ship phased out of normal reality. Weapons fire from the dreadnought passed through me harmlessly, their targeting scrambling to compensate. Then I snapped back, just long enough to execute a hard burn downward toward a gravity well I hadn't noticed before. An anomaly. A massive one. Sensors screamed warnings. Dimensional instability detected. Unknown gravitational rift ahead. Perfect. I dove straight toward it. The dreadnought hesitated. They weren't stupid. The anomaly was a death trap for any ship caught unprepared. But they also weren't about to let me go. The Emperor's voice cut through the open channel, smooth and commanding. "Pilot of the Erebus," he said, "do not mistake our patience for mercy." I gritted my teeth. Wasn't planning on it. He sighed as if disappointed. "You are in possession of something that does not belong to you." Funny, I shot back. My grandfather seemed to think otherwise. Silence. Then, "So you are his heir." The words sent ice down my spine. The Emperor knew who I was. And that meant this wasn't just about the Erebus. It was about me. I didn't have time to think about what that meant. The gravitational rift was pulling me in faster now, the ship's hull groaning under the strain. I had seconds to act, so I did the only thing I could. I killed the engines, let the gravity take me, and vanished into the unknown. For a moment, there was nothing. No stars. No up, no down. Just a crushing silence that swallowed everything whole. Then reality snapped back. The Erebus jerked violently, alarms shrieking in my ears. My vision blurred as gravity reasserted itself, slamming me against the seat. I sucked in a ragged breath. "Status," I rasped. The AI's voice came online, flickering. "Hull integrity at 74%. Engine stress levels critical. Warning, unknown spatial coordinates." Unknown coordinates? I checked the NAV systems, but the map was useless, just a static-filled void where my location should be. What the hell did I just fly into? A better question, was the dreadnought still following me? I ran a scan. Nothing. No sign of the Emperor's ship. No pursuing vessels. Just the eerie silence of deep space. I wasn't safe, not yet, but I had breathing room. And then, for the first time, I got a good look at where I'd ended up. Through the viewport, an expanse of fractured reality stretched before me. Shattered moons drifted in unnatural formations, their surfaces covered in glowing veins of energy. Gigantic, ancient structures, half-ruined and defying physics, hung suspended in space, rotating slowly as if trapped in time. It wasn't just a star system. It was a graveyard. Something about it made my skin crawl. Mara's voice crackled to life in my comms. "Bro, what the hell just happened? Your signal dropped off the map." I jumped, I said, into an anomaly. "You what?" It was that, or let the Emperor blast me out of the sky. A pause. Then, warily, "Did you make it out?" I exhaled. "Yeah, but Mara, I don't think I'm in normal space anymore." I transmitted the readings I was getting, the impossible gravitational fluctuations, the unknown energy signatures. Seconds passed before she responded. She stopped. "That's impossible." "What is?" "You're in the dead zone." I frowned. "That's a myth." "Yeah?" "Then explain why my long-range scanners say you're sitting smack in the middle of the most cursed, abandoned region in galactic history." I swallowed. The dead zone. A place where entire fleets had vanished. A place the oldest civilizations refused to speak about. I'd grown up hearing stories about it. How ships that entered were never seen again. How even the Emperor's forces avoided it at all costs. I glanced back at the ruins. Maybe the stories were true. I needed to get out of here. Now, I reached for the controls, reactivating the warp drive. But the moment I did, the ship lurched. Some force, was pulling me deeper. What's happening?" I fought the controls. "I don't know." Then, from the depths of the ruins, a massive structure stirred. My heart stopped. It wasn't just a ruin. It was a ship bigger than anything I'd ever seen. And it was waking up. The AI blared a new warning. "Unknown entity detected." Then a signal, old, ancient, began transmitting. And it spoke my name.